Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Once Upon a Crescent, a collection of bedtime stories for young Muslim children. I am your author and storyteller, Mrs. Hashmi. Are you ready to travel to a land far, far away? Tonight's bedtime story is called Conflict Resolution. In a land far, far away, there lived a miserable prince. A prince who felt like he shouldn't even be a prince who secretly wanted to stay in his pajamas all day long and not have to worry about all the responsibilities that the king always reminded him of. The king barged into the prince's magnificent room. "Assalamu alaikum, son. What are you still doing in bed? We have a busy day ahead of us. Let's get to it after breakfast." "Ah," sighed the prince. "We always have a busy day ahead of us." Breakfast was the usual spread, an entire buffet at the royal palace every morning and for every meal. The prince was fiddling with his plate of food, uninterested in the chef's preparation for breakfast. The chef inched closer to the prince. "Is something wrong, my prince? Today's meal doesn't seem to please you," the chef asked hesitantly. The prince snapped out of his gloomy mood for a moment. "Oh, no, it's not that. I'm just not feeling very confident about everything that needs to get done today. Kind of worried, actually, about what all is on my father's to-do list for today." The chef looked relieved. "Oh, don't worry, young Prince Abdullah. I'm sure you'll find a way to get it done." Prince Abdullah didn't feel so sure, though. The king instructed his assistant to deliver the daily scroll of today's meetings and responsibilities to Prince Abdullah. "Hand this to the prince. Abdullah, read it out loud for me to review." Prince Abdullah cleared his throat nervously. "Today's tasks include conflict resolution between villagers, inspection of goods, annual accounting of zakat, distributing packages for drought-affected villages." "All right, yes, sounds good, inshallah. See you at lunchtime with the reports of how everything got completed." Prince Abdullah grumbled. "By lunchtime? Baba, 1 minute." The king paused for a second and motioned for the prince to continue. Yes. "I don't know what the first task means. Or any of the others, for that matter," thought Abdullah quietly. "Young Abdullah, part of being a prince is getting things done. You will figure it out, I'm sure." With that, the king exited the room with his group of assistants and guards. Prince Abdullah was very frustrated. He felt lost and confused and very overwhelmed. Why does everyone keep saying that? What exactly am I supposed to figure out? Just then, he heard a lot of commotion and noise outside the room. There were 2 women that were ushered inside by guards. One of the guards spoke. "My prince, these women, Sister Alia and Sister Afia, have been fighting and arguing since they came to the royal palace. They say they have some conflict resolution meeting with you." Prince Abdullah's heart sank. "Conflict resolution?" he asked in a small voice. The guard spoke. "Yes, my prince, you are to find a solution to their argument as the king has instructed." The prince looked to the women. Their faces were scrunched up with anger and hurt. Their eyebrows drooped down to their noses, and they both stood there with their hands on their hips. The 2 women didn't even look at each other. They faced opposite sides of the room until the prince approached them. "Assalamu alaikum," said Prince Abdullah. "Wa alaikum assalam," they both said abruptly. Immediately, they began their argument in front of the prince. Their words came spitting out of their mouths like fire. Sister Adia, the older one, had a very loud voice. "She wants our land, and she doesn't even know what to do with it. I'm not even sure what she'll do with it. She says she wants part of the farming land." Afia responded to her sister. "I've been trying to talk to you about this for so many days. You just don't want to listen. I want some of the land to build a library. I'm not trying to steal it from anybody." Yeah, you think you're so much smarter than us. I know that's how you feel, Hadia said in a very accusing way. Afia responded after a minute. She's trying to get the rest of the village to hate me and my ideas. Well, she's not doing her part to help in our community. She's not letting me help, Afia said, defeated. Both the women went back and forth in anger, yelling and pointing fingers at each other. They were inching closer and closer to each other's faces. Their volumes of their voices were reaching to the ceiling. They were huffing and breathing so closely to each other that they could feel the other one's hot breath. Okay, enough of this, Prince Abdullah commanded. Clearly, both of you are steaming in anger. Let's take the Prophet ﷺ's advice. He said, if one of you is angry while he is standing, let him sit down so his anger will leave him. Otherwise, let him lie down. Both the women looked at the prince to see if he was serious. Well, go on now, lay down, Prince Abdullah commanded. Like right here on the bare floor? Asked Afia. Aren't you going to put down a blanket or something? She asked. When Afia did not get a response from the prince, she decided to lie down. Her sister followed. Prince Abdullah watched the women as they went at it again. Ugh, your feet are laying right where I'm resting my head. I can see the dirt in your toenails. That's how close you are to me. Move over that way, Alia snapped. Afia couldn't help but snicker and laugh. Prince Abdullah shook his head in disappointment. Okay, we're going to have to take another advice from the Sunnah. You both are still angry. Go and do wudu and return so we can talk about this. The women did as they were instructed by Prince Abdullah. They were shown the wudu area. As Afia was doing wudu, Alia looked over to her washing her feet. You better wash those feet so well. That dirt in your toenails is nasty. Afia cracked a smile and teasingly looked at her sister. Oh, you mean this dirt? Afia took her finger, scratched her toes with it, and rubbed her finger all over her sister's shoulder. Ew, Alia said, half laughing, half annoyed. The cool wudu water did wonders to their anger. They returned to the hall where Prince Abdullah was waiting. Prince Abdullah spoke out loud. You know, you both are angry for the same exact reason. Both of you want the best for your village. The sisters remained quiet. Now that the wudu water has extinguished your fiery anger, let's talk. What both of you are not seeing is that each of you are actually wanting the same thing for your village. Sister Afia, what was the reason that you wanted the land? Can you repeat that for us? This time Afia spoke calmly. I want to build a library where people can come and check out books and learn from one another. It would be really great to connect the people in our village to learn and grow together. Prince Abdullah motioned for the other sister to speak. Well, I wanted the land not to be taken away because that would be less for farming and food. It felt like Afia wasn't thinking of anyone but herself. But now I know that her intention wasn't selfish at all. It was for the betterment of the village, kind of like what I thought I was doing. Saving the land for the betterment of our village, Hadia said quietly. Prince Abdullah looked at the women and announced, My resolution to this problem is that I will be asking the king to award your village more land, specifically for this library project. Sister Adia, you continue to farm on the land that you were using. Both women took a breath of relief and said, Alhamdulillah. Prince Abdullah smiled and asked, Isn't there anything you'd like to say to each other? Afia spoke. I'm sorry for being sneaky and going behind your back to try to build the library. I was afraid you'd hate my idea and get angry. Alia replied, And I'm sorry for not taking the time out to listen to you. This whole time I kept thinking I was the only one looking out for the village, but you were doing the same thing, but in your own unique way. Both women exited the hall and were escorted by guards, smiling and excitedly talking about plans for building this new library. The chef entered the room with more servants to clean up the breakfast area. He looked over at Prince Abdullah and smiled. See, I knew you'd figure it out. You did very wisely, Prince Abdullah. Prince Abdullah sighed. Yes, but I still have so much more to do, and I feel overwhelmed by all that needs to get done in such a short period of time. Prince Abdullah thanked the chef and walked away to be by himself. Later that afternoon, the king came back to check on Prince Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum, Abdullah. I've heard great news of your conflict resolution meeting. Alhamdulillah, you got that done. Now tell me about all the other tasks that you got completed. Wa alaikum assalam, Baba. I want to say one thing before anything. Prince Abdullah paused for a minute. His palms were getting sweaty. His ears started to feel hot, and he could feel his heart racing as he felt frustrated at answering the king's questions about all the other tasks that he didn't even get done yet. He didn't want to get angry. Abdullah sat down for a minute. Yes, Abdullah, what is it? Prince Abdullah ran out the room. I'll be right back, he said, and quickly ran off to the wudu area. The prince took off his slippers and sat down with the water running, just listening to the soothing sound of water. He began to do wudu after saying Bismillah. He was taking deep breaths from the nose and out the mouth while making wudu. And slowly, he felt his heartbeat calm down. By the time he got to the last step of wudu, he was actually feeling much better. He finished off and noticed that his ears were not hot, nor were his palms feeling sweaty. Prince Abdullah smiled to himself and said, Alhamdulillah. He came back to the king and mustered up the courage to tell him how he felt. Baba, I need help. I feel overwhelmed and lost. I don't have anyone around to help me figure things out. You give me responsibilities, but I don't know if I'm doing it correctly or on time. The king put his hand on the prince's knee, comforting him without saying any words at all. Prince Abdullah continued, Baba, sometimes I feel like it's hard to be a prince. I get frustrated and overwhelmed and angry. Then when I'm angry, I don't really think straight. The king gave his son a hug. Abdullah, I'm here for you. Why don't we take a break from our responsibilities for a few days and just catch up with each other? Let's reconnect. I want you to feel cared for. We can talk about how best I can help you, okay? You know, Abdullah, I think you did wonderfully by giving the advice of the Sunnah. He looked at his son and smiled warmly. Thank you, Baba. I think that's what I needed to hear. So when you say a break from our responsibilities, does this mean we get to take the day off? Asked Abdullah. The king nodded and smiled. As they headed upstairs, Prince Abdullah felt the need to add, Baba, I don't plan on having the guards come tomorrow, and I also plan on being in my pajamas all day long.